Live from the Talking Joe studios, it's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, welcome to the Cobra All-You-Can-Eat Mongolian Buffet. It's me, Mark, the host of Talking Joe, which is the leading dedicated resurrected Mongolian warlord podcast. If you are new to the show, you can find out all of the details at the website, which is talkingjoe.co.uk. Now, today we will be looking at G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 297, which was released on the 31st of August 2022, just the very week that we are recording. And we have a special guest that we will meet in just a second. But before that, joining me, as always, it's A Real American Tim.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners.
Now, Tim, before we get right into it, I did have some business from the last episode. So last time, you I think, weren't so sure about the bat's arm attachments, and in particular, the stacked cup arm attachment. I said laser, you were more, I guess, insistent that it was a dentist drill or some such.
No, it's a drill. It's a boring drill for cutting rock. Ironhide uses a very sharp version of it in like episode 2 of Transformers back in 1984. Anyway,
so I reached out to the Talking Joe Facebook group for their thoughts. And Diana came back with a very sensible suggestion. It's a stack of cups. People got to drink, man. Hydration is important on the battlefield. Might as well have the robots carry around a few cups. Ben said if one of the other bats changed sides and couldn't be shot in the back, then the other bats would be equipped to throw water at them with Dixie cups because robots hate water. And also the Dreadnoks are known to rock up to college keg parties with a bat equipped with red Solo cups and push their way to the front of the beer queue. We also had some alternative suggestions from the consensus of everybody else saying, it's a laser, you silly Billy. And indeed, the package art to the bat toy says on the front, next to the bubble in white lettering, includes backpack with storage for separate laser, torch, and gripper. So there we go, Tim.
and by gripper you mean claw?
Well, Hasbro says gripper.
Well, because he has a hand and he has a claw.
Oh, right. Yeah. And he has a hand.
Yeah.
I also, listening back to the podcast and assembling it all, you talked about the sort of the Cajun dialect from Gung Ho and some of his specific dialogue, but we missed out on the obvious piece of dialogue that sort of pointed towards his dialect, which is where he talks about. I'll say this as it's written, gris. So gris, pronounced gree, is Cajun, which means to curse someone, frequently used in jest. So where he says, "Whoo, that big ma deuce sure put the gree on them robots," is saying that he's put a bit of a hex on the robots with the old ma juice.
Very good.
So all that aside, let's meet our special guest. I am delighted to have back on the show once more artist Andrew Lee Griffith, who is the very artist of the issue we are talking about today. He is an American comic book artist who is sometimes found in Peru. Andrew is known for his work on Transformers for IDW, but most significantly on G.I. Joe, where he did most of the issues for the Murder by Assassination arc. Issue 286, which was a Storm Shadow spotlight set back in the Vietnam era, and also 290, which was the October Guard spotlight. So it is with delight that I welcome Andrew back on the show again today. I think it's the 4th appearance, technically, after one appearance as a full-on interview very guest appearance for our anniversary show with a question for our quiz, and then also joining us to discuss the anniversary issue, but coming back for the fourth time to discuss issue 297. It is the artist Andrew Lee Griffith.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
It's a pleasure to have you back, and it was a lot of fun seeing that you were going to be working on G.I. Joe once more. Was it a surprise to be back so soon?
Well, like, I'd heard rumblings or rumors here or there, different people working on the book, that they were under a lot of pressure to get it done before the license ended. So I had kind of had a feeling that I might come back for a bit. So they initially asked me to come back to a couple issues, but by the time like this issue was getting wrapped up, then like I even like they had to take 3 pages away because I guess they were getting a lot of pressure to just get everything wrapped up before, and because they really wanted to get up to 300 and stuff. So I ended up just doing this one issue, and they were kind of overlapping different artists on different books, I guess, to get it to work. So, but yeah, I just did this one issue. I mean, as it turned out, since then I've been pretty busy with life things and stuff. So like, it worked out that I probably wouldn't have had time to do another issue anyway. But I was really glad I got to do one more before it ended.
Were there illustration jobs or freelance projects that you were working on or about to start when you got this offer, or were your decks clear?
Well, yeah, I did have a former IDW editor that I had worked with is trying to start up like an independent like comic thing, and it had a pretty good project with like a high profile writer and stuff on it that I was going to be working on, but that kind of fell apart right around the same time they asked me to jump in on this, so it worked out pretty well. And then I have like a few things where like different people I know want to make their own, create their own things to pitch, and they're hiring me to do art and stuff. So those things I'm always kind of working on the side, but luckily they're very patient and like I can work around when I do stuff like this. So like it's I don't know, it's pretty weird how like for me it's kind of always kind of worked out. I mean, I always seem to have a backlog of commissions I need to get back to, but as far as like regular work like this, it tends to balance out and work out where I I lost that other issue, but as it turned out, I had other things keeping me busy. So, but anyway, it's just funny how it works out, like almost like it's meant to be or something.
This issue arrived in stores on the 31st of August, 2022. When did you get the plot? When did you start drawing? How much time did you have?
Well, let's see. I do remember I was finishing up the last page that I did I did it like, I got up to TFCon Toronto, which is a Transformers show there. And I was there like a day early, and I was working on finishing up one page in my hotel room. So that was middle of July. So I probably got the full script, maybe, I don't know, mid to late June, something like that.
So 2-3 weeks to work on it?
They probably would have given me about a month, but like the thing is, if I search my email for 297, I get so many results of like you guys contacting me or different pages turned in along the way and stuff. So I'm not sure if it would have been. It might have been like mid June to mid July. I worked on it, something like that.
Okay, so let's say 4 weeks.
And that would equate to about a page a day then? Does that sound about right?
I try to do a page a day, and it was probably the thing where like, because I know I had help on 3 pages, and like I said, they were under such a tight wire that when it came up, I had already been committed to this convention, and I was like, well, should I go? Should I cancel? And they said, well, it's going to be really tight anyway, so we're going to, give those 3 pages to someone else. So I was like, well, I'm traveling tomorrow, so I can't work on anything, so I'm going to lose that day at least. So, but, so that was right around the time I was trying to get it wrapped up when I was going to that convention.
Yeah, a reminder to our listeners, there are 30 days in a month, and a comic is 20 pages, sometimes 22. And so as a fan, you might think, well, that's plenty of time to draw a comic in a month. But in this case, our guest is penciling and inking. And of course, artists want to take weekends. And if the writer says something like, 2-page splash of the 2 super teams fighting in Times Square, that took 1 moment to write, and that would take 3 days to draw. And then if an artist is going to do a convention, if it's 2 or 3 days, they're not going to be working on that then, unless they go back to their hotel room, there's the travel day on either end. There's like packing or saying goodbye to family, or, you know, you sometimes need a day to recover. So I have friends who, when they do conventions, they don't lose the weekend. They lose a week.
Right. You're traveling there, traveling back. You have to get ready, and there's usually people who want like commissions and things. You have to look for, if people are like, "Oh, do you have this original art? Can you bring it?" You have to look for that and things, and yeah. So it doesn't. It usually takes extra days, and it's hard to plan ahead for that, you know, because like I might have a month, and I'm like, "Oh, that's plenty of time to get 20 pages done," and then you know you just never know like what page is going to slow you down, or you get to a certain thing, you have a question, it takes some time to get an answer back from the editor. You know, it's hard to predict how the issue is going to go.
Was there any discussion of someone else inking this? Because
yes,
because we've seen with the Shannon Gallant pages the last couple of issues, there specifically was an inker to keep things moving along.
Right. Well, years ago we had like I was doing a regular Transformers issue month to month for a few years, and like there's a point where it's just really catching up with me, and we had this big 4-issue, I guess, like Battle on Cybertron and stuff, tons of characters, and I did pencil that, and Brian Shearer inked it for me. You know, of course, you know, from a lot of G.I. Joe stuff, but he did a great job on it. The only thing was, for me, the way I work, I find it doesn't save me that much time, because if I'm going to pencil for someone else to ink, I end up spending so much time like penciling and repenciling and sharpening up lines and shadows and details, just so because I get very like self-conscious that they're not going to see what I'm intending. So I kind of feel like if I'm going to ink, I'm just going to put in those details with the inks anyway. And for me, I don't know. I don't feel like it saves me all that much. But they did ask me a few times if I wanted to work with an inker.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I turned it down and said I didn't think it saved me that much time the way I work. And a lot of like shadows and background details and scratchings and stuff like I'll do just without any pencils in the first place. I'll just kind of, you know, make that up as I go with inks.
Right. And the last time we spoke to you, I think you were still based in Peru. So you're back in the States at the moment, right? In your studio there with your G.I. Joe shrine. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Funny, my wife is down in Peru right now. Her mom's not doing too well, so she's down there with her. But it's more or less we moved back. So yeah, I'm in my office, in my house now, and it would be fair to say a shrine. Lately, I've been adding a lot of like classified stuff to it and trying to make room for that. So
the trip to TF Con in Toronto, that was from the West Coast of the States. That was not from Peru.
No, East Coast. I'm in Pennsylvania, so
East Coast. Excuse me. Okay, so that was sort of a normal, reasonable flight.
Yeah, it's like an hour flight. Well, no, actually, I drove up. 2 of the volunteers for the show, I met them at a different show in Pasadena like a few months back, and they're like, "Hey, we live near you. If you ever want to just ride up with us and save gas and have company, you know." So we rode up. It was like 8 or 9 hours, but the company was good. We got along well, so we might do that again in a future show.
And working from your studio, surrounded by all of the toys, was that a different experience to your previous work on G.I. Joe? Because I guess you must have some of the figures that you're actually drawing to hand, like, you know, the likes of Rock and Roll, Gung Ho, so on.
Yeah, a bit. There's definitely a bit of that. I know, like, definitely when I worked on the 40th anniversary silent interlude issue where we kind of each covered a page, I still have my original claw, and I think my Scarlet, I got another Scarlet a few years back. It's not my original Scarlet, but anyway, I had a Scarlet on a claw I was using for reference and things and proportions and stuff. So, yeah, I definitely have that for reference. And then, what was I using? Definitely, I was drawing a lot of Alley Vipers with shields in this issue. And I still have my original Alley Vipers, and by that point I hadn't gotten a classified one yet, so I was using a lot of my original toys, because like those shields, the way they curve and stuff, are kind of hard to get right at different angles. So that was handy to have.
Were you, while you were drawing this issue, since this picks up specifically from events in the last issue, so the interior of the casino and this tunnel, this access hallway, and Mindbender's lab, presumably you were given a PDF of the previous issue or two. Do you have a sense of what issue Shannon Gallant was drawing while you were drawing this issue? Was he drawing the one before, the one after?
I believe he was finishing up 296, because I remember he sent me like rough pencils of the final page of 296 and how I'd have to start 297 and roughly where everybody was and what things looked like and stuff. So I had a handful of pencils and a handful of inked pages from 296 to work from for reference. And then the interior of the casino, excuse me, I'm trying to remember if that showed up. Was it the issue right before? Because I believe I saw it in color and stuff. I'm trying to remember what issue. Do you guys recall where the interior, where like they go inside the casino, they're outside talking on the comms and stuff, and then they go inside the casino?
Yeah, I think the casino has appeared a few times over the last few issues, so it's probably cropped up in, I guess, probably 7 issues up prior to this point, so that there's probably a few different places for the reference of the interiors and the corridors.
Like, I'll be honest, it gets pretty confusing because when I'm working on it, somebody else is already starting on 298 or 299, and I'll get like references for how they're going to do it. Like, for example, when he puts on like the different Viper pieces of clothing and stuff, I think SL was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking I'm going to do for him to get some clothes on. This is what we're going to do. So he sent me rough pencils of like the next issue. So I was looking at previous issues and the next issue, and in my mind, it gets a little confused about what took place when sometimes. But that's why I just follow the script, the plot, I guess, in Larry's case, and do my best to just make sure my issue is continuous in that way.
Yeah, fits into the bigger picture, I guess. That's interesting. That you're drawing this Genghis Khan in outfit first in the issue itself, but then SL Gallant is actually designing it in the following issue for you to be consistent with. Yeah.
It can get a bit confusing at times.
There was a couple of characters that cropped up, and I wondered whether you draw any particular inspiration for them from real life. So like the Genghis Khan character, were you thinking of any particular real life figures to draw on?
I honestly was kind of just trying my best to match what Shannon had done, what he had done in the pencils he had sent me, and then I did Google a little bit of like reference for people of that ethnicity, that part of the world and stuff, just to get like the shape of the face and that kind of stuff for a little bit of reference. Yeah, it's a weird thing too, because like when I pencil it, especially like on faces and stuff, like they really look a certain way when I pencil it, and then when I ink it, they kind of look a little different, and then when they get colored, it looks different again. So it's like it's an interesting process of watching it develop. Like when I look at a full PDF now, I'm like, this looks so different than I initially imagined it would look. But
there were a couple of characters that appear with Cobra Commander in the casino, and I thought when I was looking at them that perhaps those are some people from the real world that you've incorporated into the book, perhaps.
The one sitting around the roulette table?
Yeah.
I'm honestly trying to remember where that came from. I know I was picturing... I'm trying to get to that page there.
This is page 13, panel 1. The guy with the black hair and the black jacket.
I kind of was picturing him... Like, it wasn't anything specific. I was kind of picturing him as, like, somebody who was entertainment at the casino. Like, like a band passing through and playing at the casino or something. Like an old, like, Duran Duran or something like that. And the guy next to him with a hat. It's weird, too, because, like, Kellers can really give someone a different personality. Mm-hmm. And it's just so funny how, like, and the dealer or whatever, she looks entirely different than I was picturing. I was picturing someone of a different ethnicity when I drew her hair. But anyway, so the guy in the hat, I just was thinking like some old timer kind of, I don't know. I didn't really have anything specific, just like an older guy hanging out at the casino. Just they weren't necessarily meant to be anyone specific. Just kind of whatever came to my mind. Yeah.
When I saw that panel, I thought, you've snuck in some of your friends or something. But
no.
Yeah, I also thought when I got to this panel, I said, okay, these don't look like likenesses, but this is definitely someone that Andrew Lee Griffith knows.
No, not specifically. Just I can't say that that's the case. that might imply that they have a convincing personality, though. So that's good.
Yeah, not just a bog standard background person.
And it is kind of funny too. Like when you travel around the world for these different shows, different conventions, you might be like at a casino table or a bar, and you end up like sitting and like talking to people who are like completely different from you, look like people you'd never hang out with, So there's kind of something to that too.
I think there's also, I don't know what the psychology is here, but I feel like when I'm watching movies or TV, when I'm reading comics, my brain switches over to stereotypes and archetypes.
Sure.
Like if I'm watching a movie with like a police department and the camera pans over to like the holding cell, I'm sort of expecting a certain visual type, people, attitude, clothing. If I was actually at a jail in various parts of America, there would be a variety of people, and many of them would not fit that type. There might be some teenager who'd like run a red light. And so I think when we think of casinos, like we switch over that stereotype, like, oh, it's going to be some old people who are just pumping coins into slot machines. And we have seen a little bit of that. And then, someone might throw in a joke like, oh, there's going to be a James Bond character. But, like sort of did you say sort of a rock band passing through? Like, absolutely.
Right.
So I appreciate the sort of playing against type here. And even if it ends up not quite being who you pictured because of color, it's like, no, there's going to be a great variety of weirdos at the Cobra Island Casino.
You would think so, right? Like you never know what type's going to pass through.
You'd have to be somewhat not of right sound, of mind, as you might say.
Like we have a casino like about 40 minutes from where I live, and I've been seeing signs lately about different bands coming through. Like I don't know if you remember, like 311 is coming. It's different, different people like that. Like, and it's just so funny how I'm sure at some point they take some time and walk around the casino, or I don't think they're that huge of a band that they're going to get recognized and flooded with people, but you got to figure they'll probably spend some time at the tables or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Were there any, in terms of storytelling or fight choreography or cramming in a lot of characters, were there any particular challenges to this issue? Not that they're like out of the ordinary, but anything noteworthy about this issue? A page, a scene?
Well, let me take a look through. That's a good question.
And again, you've done this before, so it's not. I'm trying not to throw you some softball or a curveball.
You're asking if anything stands out as far as different action scenes. I do know that like the scene where all the vipers in the hallway, like in like a phalanx formation behind the alley vipers, that was sort of a challenge because I wanted them to be consistent but not identical. So I was tempted to kind of copy and paste some of them in Photoshop or something, but I don't know. I prefer it when it's hand drawn because there are little differences. Not everybody's the exact same height and in the exact same position and stuff. So
like the shield camo stands out as being very different on each one.
Yeah, because you got to figure there'd be some variety there. I mean, it was for sure a challenge having these action scenes in the beginning with Genghis Khan here fighting like stark naked with all these different characters and like picking angles that would be cleverly obfuscated or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's the standout kind of almost for the issue, as it were. Not pun not intended, but that's you've got several pages there of Genghis Khan fighting in the buff, and each panel you're cleverly finding some way of not showing the whole of Genghis Khan, as it were.
Are we getting a second first in a row? Last issue was the first ghost we've seen in a Larry Hama issue of G.I. Joe. Is this the first nude fight scene in a Larry Hama issue of G.I. Joe or issue of G.I. Joe?
Yeah, maybe. It is funny how we did get a few notes back from Hasbro where they're like, oh, he needs to be covered up more, or because everything was always covered up, but they're like, can you do it a little more so it's not quite so close to where we'd see something? It's like,
Yeah, we don't want to see the whole of the Mongol horde there.
Page one. I don't need to guess which panels got that comment from Hasbro, but when I open up to page one, I thought, oh yeah, you'd have some obfuscating green smoke in front of Genghis Khan so we don't see him nude. And then I thought, that's more smoke than we need. I wonder if someone was just being extra careful there.
That was a point where they came back and they said, Hasbro wants more coverage. So James was generous enough to say, oh, I can just handle it. I'll put in some extra smoke, and Andrew doesn't have to redraw anything. So
James Brown, colorist.
Yes,
of the issue.
yes.
The scene that you referred to before with the Vipers and the Alley Vipers walking in formation, did Hama provide any photo reference or any kind of specific reference
for their formation?
Yeah.
No, he's usually like very thorough about sending photos and stuff. When I worked on stuff in the past, especially like that Storm Shadow issue, he would send folders and folders of what their bases looked like in Vietnam and the equipment they were using and the Hueys and what typical Vietnam soldiers would be wearing and what state of wear and tear they'd be in and stuff. But like on this issue, I don't remember getting a lot of stuff from him. I guess because most reference would have been from recent issues or other issues being worked on. But for that, I just remember it being a description of what he had in mind. I know someone had asked me about how 50 caliber machine gun is getting stopped by these shields and what they're made of, but I was like, that's a question for Larry. I just draw and fold. I don't know how their elbows don't break or something holding them, but like, I don't know. But maybe it's just supposed to be the angle and getting deflected.
Yeah, it's the angle. Yeah, let's go with that.
So, or maybe just enough for getting stopped or deflected that they can keep pushing through.
I'm gonna no prize this and say that on the between panels 2 and 4 of this scene, the first row of Alley Vipers actually drops dead.
Yeah.
As the bullets go through the shields, and then it's the row of Alley Vipers behind them who take up in the front. That's my no prize for this.
There you go. It's just slightly off panel. We already had enough dead female bats, whatever, at the top there that you don't need to see more dead bodies littering the hallway. As far as like other action scene things and stuff, I do know. I don't know. It was a lot of action in this. It was nice for me getting to work with a lot of like classic characters because in issues I did in the past, it was a lot of newer characters. It was a lot of like flashback stuff. It was nice getting to stuff that was like Dr. Mindbender, Frag Viper, different characters that are like feel like old school G.I. Joe to me, like that, the stuff I grew up with as a kid, visually.
Yeah, interesting. It's an interesting point. Because obviously it was murder by assassination. There was an awful lot of newer characters in that. Then the Storm Shadow flashback to Vietnam, and then the last issue being the October Guard solo without too many G.I. Joes in that one. So yeah, it's first opportunity to draw a lot of the classics, particularly those Cobra Legions, the team in the hall from 82, 83. So yeah, it
was fun. Like getting, I don't know, like whenever I had time or room to draw in background characters, I could just pretty much draw whatever Viper I felt like drawing. So that was kind of fun too. Like if I feel like drawing a Toxo Viper, I'll draw him. Some of the action scenes were a little challenging though, the way they get described with like Jinx slashing under his foot and then him stomping on her head and all this, like, especially when different people in the background doing different things and then she's crawling in the foreground. Like pages like that are always a challenge, but also fun. I hope it worked and the storytelling makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say that, it sort of makes sense that that's sort of the challenge of sort of tracking where everyone is in a particular, fight in this close confines, that they're each coming at Genghis Khan in turn and sort of getting defeated, and you're trying to figure out where people are coming from, that once they've been downed, where they then are in relation to everyone else. Yeah, a lot of geography to keep track of.
Exactly, yeah, like physical geography. I kind of had in mind that scene in Civil War where like Winter Soldier breaks out, and like everybody takes a turn trying to stop him, kind of, and Black Widow and Black Panther and everybody like gets a turn trying to stop him, and like Tony Stark without his armor and stuff, and like just it kind of reminded me of that. So I kind of had that in mind as I was drawing it, figuring it out.
As a contrast to the specificity you get for your scenes in this issue from the Larry Hama plot, Netho Diaz, who drew 3 pages, his plot for page 16 reads, "In the lab, Sean and Dawn are going full thrash ninja against the Cobras." That's it. If the artist is feeling creative, he, she, they can let it all hang out here and show off some spectacular fight choreography and storytelling, or I can provide 3 pages of fight layouts. It's 100 times easier for me to sketch out a fight sequence than it is to describe it in words. Note, I can generate the fight layouts overnight if needed, but Netho Diaz got to, at least for page 16, I'm not sure about the other 2, just make up whatever he wanted, and he chose to do a big splash of Sean and John kicking and shooting and slashing. So
that's what I get for saving the 3 funnest pages for last. I did intentionally leave those for last because sometimes at the end of an issue you can feel a bit drained and like, oh, I just want to get this done. But like I left those because I'm like, oh, I can look forward to getting those done. That's going to be an incentive to keep things moving and just have fun at the end. And then they got taken away.
But it's also a nice thing because it's a kind of a swan song for Netho, who has been so closely associated with Dawn, and to have this big action sequence. It's a nice way for him to bow out of G.I. Joe. And
I also feel like if you're going to have someone come in and fill in a few pages, those make sense because they're kind of their own little scene there. They're all kind of connected. And so I mean, it did make sense, but it just. I was teasing it a little on social media, like, oh, that's what I get. And then, well, like, for example, I was talking earlier about how you never know what page is going to slow you down. The one with the C-130 flying in the interior of that, with everybody on the benches and the vehicles and stuff, and like, that's stuff like that can be very time-consuming, especially when you're trying to do perspective, and there's things like the Vamp has the angled hood, and the Wolverine has some weird angles on it and stuff. Trying to draw that stuff in perspective can be really challenging at times, especially when you have to have characters sitting off to the side in the right proportion, the right angles, and I think it works pretty well there.
Yeah, I'm gonna award that panel most complicated panel of the issue.
I think so. Yeah, I was real happy with how the first panel turned out, though, with the sunlight and colors and everything.
You should have saved this page until last, and then someone else could have drawn that
for sure.
Or I mean, no, like I'm sure it could have backfired too. It's like the lights are out, everything's in silhouette, like flat 1-point perspective,
right?
Some talking silhouettes. I appreciate on the page after that. I very much appreciate on the page after that as the 3 Joes who are escaping in the drainage system come out at sort of street level and bump into the extraction team. And I'm not sure if that's a great coincidence or if they were trying to aim for running into each other. But in panel 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not fully technically an over-the-shoulder shot, but it's basically an over-the-shoulder shot from Helix's point of view, and the camera is like 2 inches off the ground, and the horizon's at mid-level as the 3 Joes with machine guns are coming toward them, and behind them is the casino. Mm-hmm. And I very much appreciate just being reminded of what the building looks like, that it is so funny looking, that it's got a funny color scheme. It's
right.
Like, light purple, and
a big pumpkin logo.
And that you situate. It's like, okay, I know how far away from this the 3-member team is that's escaping it.
Well, it's funny. This is a page that I was working on in my hotel room, and I didn't have my normal setup, and I didn't have an elevated table. So this is probably the page that I felt was least, I was least happy with in terms of rendering of the characters and everything. It was a little rushed and stuff. But for that particular panel, it's weird because the previous pages that had been drawn that showed where they were outside of the casino, it wasn't flat surfaces, you know, it was like a natural road going up and down, uphill, downhill a little bit. So it's weird when you have to make sure that it's obvious that it's supposed to be going uphill and it's not just going off in a perspective flat background, you know? So I wanted to make it clear that it went uphill towards where the guys were running up over the hill, you know? So hopefully that works.
Yes, they are coming up from behind that sort of front horizon line.
Right. It helps too that you don't quite see their feet, and it's not. I'm not trying to be Rob Liefeld there. I just it helps to seal the impression that they're going over a crest of a hill if you don't see their feet and lower legs. Yeah.
I don't think Mr. Liefeld would have attempted this page this way.
I like that.
Well, I just noticed, and this isn't a knock on James at all. The lighting makes sense because it's nighttime, but if you look just at Helix's face in the last panel, she looks very blue and kind of reminds me of one of those Star Trek aliens. I forget what they're called. Andorians, yeah.
Yeah, there's an unmotivated light source on Roadblock's shirt in that panel too.
Oh, yeah.
That does not match the bullets hanging from his shoulders.
And if we know anything from reading Devil's Due comics, every single bullet casing should be as bright as the sun.
Those old magical bullet chains that just hang over the shoulders and they never seem to run out.
So, I just to go back to a previous point, I agree in a larger context, it's nice to have you back for almost a whole issue. It's a bummer that you didn't get to do the whole issue, but getting this other person to do these 3 pages makes all kinds of sense.
Right.
And absolutely that it's a contained scene makes it fit well. And Diaz was in a rush. He was working on 2 other jobs when he drew these 3 pages. And so partly to save time, but also because why not? It's exciting. One of the 3 is a splash. But he did not, he said on Facebook this week, he didn't pack detail into these pages because he wanted them to match the rest of the issue, which is both, I think, a response to a crazy deadline, but also, I think, a smart artistic decision. It's like no one needs to be sort of reminded or convinced that Diaz can pack a page full of detail. So, you know, those pages are then inked by Maria Keene, who's been inking the regular issues around this. Right. And when I got to those 3 pages, I thought, like, okay, this is definitely where Diaz picks up, but this does agree more with your pages than disagree. And so I appreciate that.
That's interesting to me because, like, I don't know how to say it. Like, I felt like my pages have more detail than this. This is more like the standard look in the recent issues and stuff, and I always thought the inks and stuff were kind of on a little bit on the simpler side, like less detailed and things, and I kind of feel the opposite. Like, I feel like I was putting more detail in. But then...
You know what? I guess if I'm comparing his 3 pages to like issue 249 and 250, where he's like going nuts, and that also is a different inker. So yes, that's a fair response. Your pages have more detail. In sort of the broad spectrum of more detail, less detail, I do think this issue is in relative agreement with itself.
But no, I mean, it works. It flows pretty well with the rest of the issue. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I just thought that was an interesting take.
Yeah, I think Diaz, you know, with the look of, as you say, like the 249 or whatever it was, where he's sort of noodling a little bit more with the line work, and he's got a different colorist. This look to it with the sort of slightly paring back his style, having, I guess, a different inker work over him, and also having the consistency of the same colorist. Makes it flow.
Like, I feel like this
in a way that isn't jarring.
Fits in really well with like Shannon's style on recent books.
Yeah.
Andrew, I bet if you want to draw your own version of these 3 pages, some moneyed art collector out there might fall in love with buying the whole issue from you, all 20 pages, including like the 3 that never saw print.
Well, my regular collector already bought the rest of the issue. He didn't say anything about that, so... I me if he wanted to commission me to draw those 3 pages so it was complete, I'd be interested. But...
Right.
He just picked up the whole kit and caboodle sight unseen, was it?
Yeah, he don't want to identify the guy or anything, but he pretty much he's bought every issue I've done so far, the full interiors.
Wow.
And the page from the 40th anniversary special?
That one I haven't sold. I've had some people reach out inquiring about it, but it's something I'd like to keep for myself because that was something I always wanted to work on, at least something like that. Not that I knew that was specifically going to happen, but something like that.
And sort of this discussion of sort of versus Shannon's style was making me think about your previous issue that you did, 290, which was the October Guard spotlight. Was that originally going to be done by Shannon? Do you know? I got the impression that perhaps again it was you stepping in to last minute to make up some time.
I think it was just one of those situations where they just needed help real fast, and they asked, "Are you available to start this like today?" And so it probably would have been by him.
I think he did the next issue. That was the first part of Mistakes.
290 was the issue that Heather Vaughn was going to draw.
Oh right, yeah,
and then the scheduling didn't work out on her end. But
that's right.
In a reasonable, there's no controversy there. Just the scheduling didn't work out.
That's right.
No, whatever happened, I'm really glad I got to work on that. I always wanted, always liked the October Guard. One of the first issues I ever read was that physically got my hands on as a kid was when they were in, was it Kazakhstan or something, and they had like the big ATV thing that they were trying to drive something on the back of. I'm trying to remember the details of the story, but there was like this immense double-page spread where they were going over like a little off a cliff or something, and they had like a little jeep full of October Guards, and then there was the big ATV, and there was just all this crazy stuff going on. I just always loved that.
Is that 6 and 7, or is that your
Yes,
book?
I think it'd be 6 and 7. Yeah, and then they all get captured at the end of the cliffhanger.
Yeah. Line them up along the ravine.
Yeah,
and execute them.
Yeah.
I read issue 6 with that cliffhanger where we're looking into Cobra Commander's the reflection of the Joes in his space shield. I read that after I had read issues like 90 and 91, and I was worried for the Joes. It's like, no, this has already happened. I'm sure they get out of it. I thought, how are they going to get out of it? They really don't seem like they're going to get out of it.
Yep. Larry's always been good at those cliffhangers and things, and knowing where to end an issue and how to end it.
As a fan, what's your take on Genghis Khan this character showing up here now?
I thought it makes sense to have like a big villain come back right before the end, like it made total sense to me, like a new Serpentor kind of, and I don't know, I didn't put too much thought into it. It just made sense to me to have a big villain like that come back at the end, and yeah.
And do you wanna speculate if you got insider knowledge? Obviously, you don't have to spoil anything, but if you don't, do you want to speculate on where things might go as we sort of progress over the next couple of issues towards the grand finale?
Well, I do know, and I was sworn not to say anything, but I do know how Larry intended to finish up the IDW run. Like, there's a specific scene taking place at the end. And I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if that's definitely where it's going to end up, but definitely sounds like fun, and definitely sounds like it'll leave people wanting more for it to go forward. Somebody told me that he posted on social media that he's writing issue 301 or something, I guess, for a different company, I guess. That's just what I was told. That's just hearsay. That's nothing. Yeah,
at FarleyCon, he mentioned in passing that he was already writing 301 for the new, as yet unannounced publisher.
Okay. So that's good to know that it'll continue. I have no idea who the new publisher is using as far as creative talent on any of the Hasbro stuff. And it's kind of funny because no one I've talked to who's worked on it knows anything either, so I'm assuming they're bringing in a lot of new talent. trying to make a mark.
Are you for certain not doing anything for 300? 297 is your swan song for IDW G.I. Joe?
As far as I know, yeah.
Things could change. There is an oversized issue to come, so they might still need help. Who knows?
I'd just put out there. I'd love to chip in on it if I could, but as of now, I haven't heard anything. Usually, I don't hear anything until like they're just sure they need help, and they're like, "Hey, can you jump in and do this?" That's usually how it works for me. Except for the murder by assassination, I had a little bit of lead time on that.
You know what would be fair? 3 pages.
Yes, yes.
In 3 pages of cool ninja fight in 300. I think it's only fair.
Yeah, there you go. Pitch that for me. I was going to say, especially if like Sherlock is in it, because then that could be like my last, my last few pages of the character I helped introduce.
Mm. See, I was gonna say that I think what would be cool is if maybe each of the key kind of IDW artists were given like a splash page for the back of the book, kind of, with that splash encapsulating some key moments from the elements that they worked on. So maybe you could do a big murder by assassination splash featuring Sherlock to go.
I'd be all for that.
Mark, you're describing what I call the Bendis finale approach.
Mhm.
Several times over Brian Michael Bendis's 15-year run at Marvel Comics, when he would get to the final issue, or sometimes just a big anniversary issue of New Avengers or Ultimate Spider-Man, there would be a series of full-page splashes or double-page splashes drawn by the artists who had done those scenes a year or 2 or 5 earlier, because Bendis was on these books for 5 years. And I think that's really cool. However, G.I. Joe, to me, is not a book that uses a lot of splash pages. And even though that's a fun showcase for the artists, I would rather every artist get to do a page or 2 of continuity in panels, or while I'm wishlisting, a 6-page backup. So, in a different version of the 40th anniversary year, IDW publishes more than just a double-sized final issue and a silent interlude remake. There are additional issues or hell, 297 and 298 and 299 are also double-sized, and that's how you pack in returning artists to say hello and goodbye one more time.
Right.
But sure, if it were to end up being just a sort of pin-uppy splash page in 300, that would also be exciting.
It is funny how little opportunity there's been for big splash pages working on any of these books. I mean, there's been some big panels and things of I remember the October Guard going into the Revenge base and stuff, and there were some big panels there of action and stuff, but I haven't gotten to do a lot of splash pages in these books, if any.
I don't think in the Marvel run, generally the first page is a splash page.
Right.
But, Hama is so much of a writer and a storyteller, and he's thinking moment to moment, and he's not thinking in that, 1990, 1994, pre-image, post-image mode of I need to pull in these young kids who just want something sexy and exciting. Oh, this page looks awesome.
Right.
Cable's so cool with his big guns. Or or the artist who's also writing the book, who, whether they're thinking it in the front of their mind or in the back of their mind, if I make this page a splash, it'll sell for a lot more money.
Right.
So I think part of it is that Hama doesn't think that way, write that way. I think also part of it subtly is, years ago, G.I. Joe stories were 22 pages. Now they're 20.
A little more condensed. Yeah.
And whether Hama realizes he's doing it or not, I think everyone who's writing 20-page stories, who used to write 22-page stories, is reacting to that somehow.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, too, because when we did that 40th anniversary silent interlude project, we just all got an email at the same time saying, if you want to work on this, send us what page you'd like to request. And for some reason, I didn't go for the first page flying in. One, I didn't know how I could beat that initial image or match it or whatever, but the other thing was I figured everyone else would be going for that because it's so rare to get to do a splash page for G.I. Joe. That just popped in my mind when you were talking about that. But no, you're right. In the early 90s, how about all those issues with X-Men and X-Force where it's just sometimes there's just full issues, if I remember right, of splash pages. Like almost every page is a splash page, or like half a page.
But also, in the modern era of variant covers, all of the different variant covers, in a way, they sort of, I think they scratch part of the itch for splash pages. I know it's not the same thing. It's not story. And also, issue 275 of G.I. Joe is the sort of response or antidote to this line of thinking.
Sure.
Because it was all splash pages, and Joe had never done that.
Yep, you're right.
It's like suddenly G.I. Joe 275 was like Superman 75. Death
Exactly,
of Superman.
yeah.
It was all splash pages. And that sort of hits the audience in a different way because it is sort of harder to tell the story.
Yeah, it just makes that issue feel so big. You're right. I don't know how I didn't think of that issue when we were talking about this. But...
Okay, I think we're almost reaching the natural conclusion of our discussion around the issue. There's one thing more I wanted to raise with you, Andrew, which is that you've just produced a new print to be taking to conventions that people can get from you when they see you in person. So do you want to tell us about that?
Oh, it's just that I haven't had a lot of like G.I. Joe artwork on me at shows and at conventions and stuff, and I don't know. It's funny because at first I thought I was going to do a Snake Eye Storm Shadow one, but it wasn't quite coming along the way I pictured it in my mind, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll do like the two of them and Scarlet like in an action pose together, and then I was like, well, why don't I just split it off? I'll have her in an action scene, then have the two of them in an action scene, so that way I have two different prints in the future. And that's all it really was. It was just something where I just took some time to draw something I felt like drawing, which I rarely get to do. So, yeah, I'd like to not always have the same prints for sale and introduce new things from time to time.
How big is it? How much is it?
11 by 17. It's I usually sell my prints 20 or 2 for 30 or 10 for each after that. It's 11 by 17 or A3 in the US.
Where will people be able to get hold of it? Is it just an in-person thing? Can people get it remotely, or do you want to trail your next few convention appearances?
I do have a Store Envy site I could put it up on, but I just haven't had a chance yet. But if anybody wants to follow my Store Envy store, it's just Glove Studios at Store Envy. I could put it up there. But otherwise, I've been just planning to take it to like New York Comic Con and any other shows I do for the rest of the year.
Cool. And also this week, I saw on the social media a commission of yours, a sketch cover shared of yours with Spirit and Grimlock, which looked very cool.
Yeah, Spirit Dinosaur Hunter, that was kind of fun. They wanted like the Turok logo. I thought it worked well, and like Freedom was like a lore, which is kind of ironic because as I got home, my classified Spirit arrived, and I got to take that out, and thought that was a pretty cool figure. I always liked that guy. But, it was fun because they wanted it, like, cartoony design, so I got to be a little colorful with it. Didn't have to be too detailed or anything.
And these prints you have drawn and also colored yourself?
The Scarlet one I did. I don't always color my own, but it depends on if it's from, like, usually if it's from a book or something, if it's like a splash page or a cover from something published, I'll just use that. I always, like, ask the colorist if they're okay with it. But there are other times where, I'll hire a colorist to do something that way. If I sell it, I don't have to worry that they're going to feel like I took advantage or anything. But anyway, it's so like, I usually have a book of prints with me at shows, and if you look through, a lot of them are colored by me, but a lot aren't as well.
Cool. So, if people want to find you, get in contact, badger you for commissions, then I guess the place to go is to search Google for Glove Studios, and they'll find you, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like Twitter, Instagram, my Gmail, like everything's pretty much just Glove Studios. It makes it kind of easy that way. I try to keep it consistent.
Cool. And have you got anything coming up next that you wanna plug?
Well, I'm working on some stuff for Renegade. The guys doing the card sets and everything. Right now, that's kind of like my most consistent work, and then aside from that, I'm working on a few original projects. One of them is with John Barber, the former editor of IDW, and wrote a lot of the Transformer stuff I did. So him and I are working on an original thing. We're just about ready to pitch, or maybe kickstart or something. trying to
Excellent.
decide
I'll,
what to do
keep-
with it.
I'll keep an eye on Twitter and see how that progresses. Look, good luck with it all.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll be pushing it a lot on social media and stuff.
I'm sure, yeah.
I'm sure we'll get to a point where it's
Excellent.
annoying. But
So I think all that remains to be said is thank you very much for joining us once again and sharing your thoughts on the latest issue. And I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as we did. So yeah, thanks again, Andrew.
well,
Thank you,
and
Andrew.
We're finishing up just as my voice is starting to normalize a little bit. not as hoarse as it was when I started. But yeah, thanks for having me back. And I hope there will be opportunities for it in the future. I don't know what's going on with the new publisher, but I'd love to keep working on Joe in some way or another.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
So yeah, great to have Andrew back again. Great to have him back on the show. So looking into the detail of issue 297, it comes from writer Larry Hama, artist Andrew Lee Griffith, and Netho Diaz, with inks by Andrew Lee Griffith for his own pages and Maria Keane for Netho Diaz's pages. Colours, as always, by Jay Brown, letters Neil Utaki, editor Riley Farmer, group editor Tom Waltz, and research specialist Diana Davis.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A is drawn by S.L. Gallant and colored by Jay Brown. And in the foreground on the left, in a green glass tube of liquid and air bubbles, is a bald, anonymous, shadowed out male figure. We see head, neck, and two hands, and the fingers are touching the insides of this glass case. And this mystery person who some issues ago, when we first saw the cover or had the early inkling of this story, we are led to believe that this is either Serpentor almost ready to be hatched, or maybe a Snake Eyes clone, or both. In the middle ground, Scarlet, in a great sort of surprise attack, turning around and seeing something behind her pose with her weapon drawn, her crossbow, is looking back at this mystery figure, and her mouth is open. And then behind her are some blue computer screens, and Gallant has slightly crisscrossed the cover, both on the bottom, on the very top, behind the logo, and in the middle ground and background, with some black power cables, which is a detail I think you noticed last, but does a nice job in adding depth to the picture, and also what I would call, finger quotes, some business, some bits, some stuff, that this isn't a clean computer lab. Cover B is the second of a set of interlocking covers drawn by Jamie Sullivan and colored by Raul Angulo and Audrey Sullivan. And this is every Cobra character with some Cobra vehicles behind them. So this one, there are some favorite characters like Slice and Dice and Major Blood and Night Creeper and Firefly in the foreground. There are some lesser appearing characters like the Headhunters, and help me out. So I know the Nitro Vipers are in the center in the back row, right? They're in light gray. They've red masks, and they drive the Hiss 2. Remind me who that recolor of the Nitro Viper is on the left, who's in sort of gray and red and has a white or silver mask. Did this person drive the what's that later Cobra vehicle that uses the Rolling Thunder wheels?
So it's the one on the top left is a Nitro Viper that came with the detonator.
Oh,
vehicle.
and is he still named Nitro Viper?
And the one in the middle is a Track Viper.
Oh, okay, right. I'm getting mixed. Thank you. I'm getting mixed.
Same
up.
mold, I think.
Yes. All right. So Track Viper drove the Hiss 2, came first, light gray, red face. The Nitro Viper is the recolor. Thank you. Drove the detonator. And then remind me, who's on either side of the Nitro Viper?
I think this is called the Cyber Viper, isn't it?
Oh yeah, from Mega Marines.
Yeah, that era.
Who we have never seen in the comic. Who we've never seen in the Marvel comic.
Ooh, Did they appear in Slam Dunk in the Cyber Castle around that era? Or I do not know, to be honest, without double checking.
So the Marvel bullpens checklist, that page in every Marvel comic in the 80s and 90s that had like editorial updates and sometimes a fluffy column from Stan Lee, and then a checklist of every Marvel book that was coming out that month or sometimes that week. When the Star Brigade issues were being published by Larry Hama and Phil Gozier, earlier in the sort of catalog solicitation cycle, and I think on the Marvel bullpen bulletins page, the Mega Marines were gonna show up, and either the schedule of the toy actually ended up not matching, or Hama changed his mind, or something. But I am having not looked at the final year of Marvel G.I. Joe in a little bit. I am 99% certain. I'm 99.9% certain that those two, like the Monster Viper and the Bio Viper and the Cyber Viper, and Clutch in his weird Fisher Price neon orange costume, they never showed up in the Marvel G.I. Joe run.
No, he did appear. He did. I'm just flicking through.
Is there an Andrew
Slam Dunk in the Cyber Castle.
What issue is that?
That is
150. Huh. Cool. I guess it does make sense. I mean, they were new toys, and the comic book was supposed to feature the new toys. I don't have my issue 150 in front of me. Are they in the background, or are they doing something? Is Snake Eyes shooting them and slashing them?
Yeah, I
remember a lot of that in that issue.
He's sort of a commander in one of the new Cobra vehicles with some gaudy-looking Vipers, which are probably like Viper number 3 or something. Yeah. Without wanting to editorialize, a fairly horrible-looking Cobra vehicle of that era.
Well, I stand corrected. All right, so two last comments on this cover. You asked our Facebook group who this middle Night Creeper is, and what did people say?
People said to me that he's a little bit. I think he's probably the most obscure character on the cover. He is Incision from the Cobra Plague team. So that is Aleph, the Night Creeper leader who originally appeared in ARAH, who has a change of look and a change of name. And he only appeared towards the back end of the Devil's Due era of comics.
Is that you just referred to a toy set of figures?
No, the Cobra Plague team was as far as I know, a comics only team.
Oh, okay. So in our reread of the Devil's Due issues in our other episodes of Talking Joe, we haven't gotten there yet. So
exactly, yeah.
I have not met this guy. Who's the lady with the blonde hair and the blue jumpsuit behind Big Boa and Major Blood? Was that Dr. Biggles Jones? No, Biggles Jones has brown hair and a white lab coat. Of course, Tim.
Exactly.
Of course,
Biggles Jones is the weapons inventor who did the railgun and the Transformers crossover and stuff. This is Dr. Cassandra Knox, who appeared in the issue Shadow of the Bat, where she invented a new bat which terrorized Scarlet in a non-Larry Hama written issue.
The thing I like about this cover is that it is exemplified in the two track vipers in the center of the cover. One is a very big person, and one is a slimmer person. And it's great to see that where you have a legion, hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of a particular kind of sort of anonymous soldier or viper, you'd have some that are a little taller, a little shorter, a little bigger. And some of them are looking at each other, right? The two saw vipers are looking at each other. And and there's a nice amount of variety in terms of not just having everyone stand as if they are at attention or as if they are sort of like getting a solo pinup by themselves with no background. You know, there's a lot of personality in how Firefly is hunching and he's holding something, and Copperhead is leaning forward, and Slice and Dice are certainly leaning forward. You know, one of the Red Ninja Vipers is resting his sword on his shoulder the way that I do when I'm standing around with a baseball bat.
The thing that strikes me most about this cover is how much it's framed as an individual cover, as well as being part of a overall 5-part cover. That you've got Slice and Dice down in the bottom left hand and right hand corners, really creating a frame for the piece, with Major Blood being right in the middle and being the sort of the central focus. So not suffering from some of the issues that we've seen from other combined covers where maybe it doesn't feel quite of a piece on its own, as well as being part of a wider thing. I also, each one of these covers has a kind of theme to it. So the last one was like Dreadnoks. I think this one is kind of, I'd call Cobra misfits. Like a lot of the Cobras that maybe don't necessarily fit in particularly well with other sub teams. And
then all these covers, it's just a bunch of Vipers in the back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was sort of struck as well by the style. Like sort of a lot of the characters look quite sort of gangly almost, and sort of almost Paul Pope-ish. It was an interesting take that's been taken on some of these.
Yeah, Sullivan is. I really like the inking. There is, considering how small and detailed everyone is, there are sort of there are a lot of thick lines. I mean, they're not thick compared to a character that's drawn sort of full figure much closer in like a pinup. You know, like there's some lines, the next cover that I'll talk about, the Retailer and Center cover, on the bottom left, there are some actual thick lines, but there's a lot of variety here, and Sullivan's doing a little bit of spotting of blacks. Big Boa's knee, Copperhead's thigh, Slice and Dice, you know, they're leaning forward and there are little bits of black shadow on them. And this is a really fun cover.
Retail incentive.
All right, so what you wouldn't call cover C, right? So comic book retailers, stores could order one of these for every 10 copies combined of A and or B. This is drawn by John Royal and Jagdish Kumar and colored by James O'Frady, and it is Big Boa bursting through a wall at us, and we rarely see this in the IDW G.I. Joe graphic design layout universe, but there is stuff in front of the logo. There's debris in front of the logo. So
I
grateful
knew you'd
for
be
that.
Pleased.
I don't want to say I'll get it wrong. Is this Big Boa's first appearance in Hama's Real American Hero? He was on the cover. He was on the Jamie Sullivan cover last month. Was he on 296B?
No, it's this one. It was the one that we were just looking at.
Oh, yes, of course. I just referred to him.
It's certainly, I think, his first solo spotlight cover.
Yes. He is in an issue or two of the Devil's Due run. He does not appear in any Real American Hero story written by Larry Hama.
Yeah, curious. I think you're right. I don't think he has appeared in any Larry Hama scripted books.
There's a tiny addition here. He has a Cobra logo tattoo on his shoulder, which is not on the figure, and it sort of matches, parallels the white Cobra logo on his boxing glove. 3 things that I notice about this. One, he's got a backpack thing, or a bomb strapped to his back, or artists sometimes carry around like those clear plastic or black sort of plastic poster tubes that they can have art rolled up in, or like if your friend is an architect and rides a bike, that's how they get their plans around. There's a little canister thing that's stuck to his back, and I don't think that doesn't correspond to anything in the action figure. So
no, maybe it's a thought process from Royal that he's got this breathing tube on his helmet that doesn't really go anywhere. Maybe he's thinking, if it's like a special breathing tube, you'd need like an oxygen tank or something. So let's stick it on his back.
I don't mind it. It starts to ask a question, because I feel like there should be 2 of them, like Torpedo's tiny gas tank oxygen tank backpack. But where his head is here, Big Boa's head, we're not allowed to see if there is a second one. But anyway, so that's one thing that stands out. Two, the spikes on his bandolier suspenders are aiming in opposite directions from each other. They're not just sort of geometric conical like a cone spikes. They're like Hershey's Kisses, and they go to the left or to the right. Mm-hmm. That's a fun little flourish. And this is really unusual for a modern G.I. Joe cover. The coloring in the background is hard edge and graphical. It is a yellow and orange and red burst that I think is supposed to recall all the package art from the 1980s toys, the Hector Garrido explosion. But it's not that kind of explosion. It's actually, you were referring to Slam Dance in the Cyber Castle, issue 150 of G.I. Joe, right? That has a similar treatment where there's a sort of light and then it gets to red with black lines, making a traditional sort of comic book inker's like effect burst, like da da. So this Big Boa cover is subtly referring to G.I. Joe package art from the 80s, but also just a different graphical color treatment.
With no fade on the color as well. It is distinct.
Yeah, it's not a it's not. There's no gradation. It's not painterly. It is just sort of triangular, thin lines, like an inker would do with a brush or a pen.
And John Royal often shares his kind of work in progress art online, and so I've seen the black and white for this, and sort of just flicking between the black and white and the color. Sort of, it's striking how much as great as John's work is on its own, how much adding in the color sort of elevates it and makes it pop. It's not a case of sort of the color just being a functional thing that has to happen. It sort of is definitely part of the package of really selling this his work.
I sometimes complain about color in comics or in G.I. Joe comics, and there's something happening on this cover that I like a lot, which is this yellow highlight on the top of everything. That is Big Boa, on the top of his higher boxing glove, his shoulder, the top of his helmet, his right, our left side of his helmet, that shoulder going past the Cobra tattoo, and then his forearm and the glove that's closer. There's this yellow. It's not a halo because it's actually on him. There's an arc light. There's a rim light on him, and James O'Frady makes the decision to not also put that yellow highlight on any of the debris. So the debris isn't sort of physically agreeing with the light source, but that might be too much. That might be too busy, too distracting. We're supposed to sort of see the debris and sort of not see it, sort of see past it, see through it. But the color on Big Boa here is great.
Wonderful. And then just rounding the package out, we've got an online exclusive cover, which is the third part of the triptych cover from Dave Johnson, this time with Serpentor on the front, Baroness, the right half of Mindbender, unfortunately being cut in two. We finally see Cobra Commander, whose cloak is framing the other two issues, and there's also a Cobra Trooper in there. I think we've probably talked enough about the covers not to linger on this too much. Looks great, but I think, does suffer from being part 3 of a 3-part cover on its own.
Something that Dave Johnson is amazing at. He's not just an illustrator, he's a designer. And so he's not just drawing with line, he's composing with shape, right? So Serpentor, who is also knocked out in a color, he's all purple, he makes a big shape on the top, right? And then Johnson will use geometry, actual geometry, right? It's not that Baroness is in front of some portal or window. She's just in front of a geometric shape. She's just in front of a circle, and it's knocked back in flat red, so she pops, right? And then this Cobra Commander cape blue thing. Dave Johnson works in shape, He sort of inks in shape, like where his shadows go, his characters, in a way that, you know, if you're wondering sort of what I mean by like design and shape and geometry, just to pick like two contrasting examples. When I think of Jim Lee drawing Batman and Justice League, when I think of David Finch drawing Batman, or going back a ways, Cyberforce, I'm thinking very much of line. They're drawing shapes, they're drawing like anatomy and people and buildings and the Batmobile. But when I squint at a Jim Lee cover or a David Finch cover, I don't think of like 5 or 6 or 10 geometric shapes. And I do when I look at Dave Johnson's work.
Very good. Let's find out what actually happens on the inside of this issue with a recap of the plot breakdown. In Dr. Mindbender's lab on Cobra Island, Genghis Khan has been freed from his gestation tube. The Joes open fire on the Mongolian naked guy. Khan evades their bullets and arms himself with an Alley Viper shield and Night Creeper sword. He's able to take down Throwdown, headstop Jinx, headbutt Helix, and backhand Dawn. Donning Dr. Mindbender's cape, a Viper's vest, and Alley Viper pants, Khan delivers a rousing speech to the troops. Meanwhile, the second team of Joes in the utility corridor are forced back by a phalanx of Alley Vipers who are protected by shields, and they retreat onto the casino floor, waving to Cobra Commander as they pass him by. Scarlet's team, still forgetting about the exit via the kitchen, make an escape through the drainage system, meeting up with the second team outside the base. Sean and Dawn cover Scarlet's escape, laying down the hurt on a Viper team before Genghis Khan intervenes, threatening to blow them up, resulting in a tense standoff, which is to be continued. So, Tim, what was your big reaction to this one?
I liked it. I don't know what I was expecting, because I saw part of your email to our guest for this episode where you described this issue as absolutely bonkers or totally bonkers,
yeah,
or outrageously bonkers or bonkerifically outrageous. And so I thought, oh yeah, I guess, I mean, Genghis Khan is in this issue, so I guess it'll be different than some other issues. Here are some things that I liked about this issue. I liked that various Cobra and Joe characters keep pointing out the incongruities of a resurrected Genghis Khan appearing in the modern day and completely having his faculties about him, that he's buff, that he can somersault and flip, that he speaks English, that he knows what a grenade is and how to use it. So that feels very Larry Hama, right? Like, I mean, even on the first page, Dawn says, somehow I didn't think he'd be that buff. I like that, as you just referred to, Genghis Khan in 2 steps dresses himself in Cobra attire, and because it slightly recalls Serpentor dressing himself in issue, is it the end of 49? Because in 49, I haven't looked at 49, 50 in a while, but I am always thinking of the Mike Zeck Serpentor pinup from, I forget if it's yearbook 3 or 4, but there's this sort of in-between costume that Serpentor has in the Marvel comics where he's got no shirt and like orange pants, and that is not his costume in the toy or the TV show. So for Genghis Khan to sort of not, there's a different version of this where like Mindbender is like, I present you here with attire similar to what you died in, sir, or so a specifically new tailored Cobra costume that is half Cobra and half what you might have worn. Like, there's like a helmet that isn't, anyway.
Yeah, it's just like, instead the first part of it is grabbing the cape from Dr. Mindbender. Ha! Give me that cape. Yoink.
Yeah.
And he just grabs Mindbender's cape and he's like, what?
Which may or may not be emasculating to Mindbender, but I think it does speak to this idea that Mindbender's creation is out of his control.
Yeah.
And James Kavanaugh, if you're listening, I fully expect you to appear at a future G.I. Joe convention in this precise cosplay. And I'm looking for
The
a great
clothed costume, please, James.
Yes, well, a great black wig, and I'd like some facial hair.
Oh, that's throwing down the gauntlet. Love
The
it.
podcast that launched 1,000 action figure customs. I like that the Alley Vipers are doing an Alley Viper thing, and I like that Netho Diaz draws this issue with less detail. And he said on Facebook, I had such a tight deadline, and the script gave me liberty to create mostly the scenes, so I had to do a splash page, obviously. I tried to not crosshatch too much to make it look more similar to Andrew's pages. And then we can talk about this in a moment. He and Hama have a little exchange on Facebook, which is neat. I think there's good movement and fight choreography and dialogue and checking back in with different characters. I don't like that there's no letters page. Tom Waltz. Boo.
Disappointing.
It's time. It is Tom Waltz and Riley Farmer. It is time to do. I'm sorry. Please stay up 2 hours late. And the book's about to end. I need to hear from some fellow fans in the letters page.
My sort of high level response, and it's almost a surprising response to me, was that I enjoyed it, and I just thought it was wild, and it's it's crazy, but sort of I'm just going with the whole roller coaster ride that we're on. I can see that maybe some people not appreciating this issue, the people who enjoy the kind of the more realistic military aspects of G.I. Joe, which this, I think it's fair to say, is not, but there's a lot of joy to be had there, and the dialogue in this issue is just hilarious. Larry has always got just this great ear for dialogue, and there's almost like just out and out comedy in moments. So Dawn says, "So what are we going to do? Gun down an unarmed naked guy?" Scarlet replies, "I'm making a command decision here. That unarmed naked guy is just an animated corpse."
Yeah.
And we get let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six pages of
with a naked, obstructed Genghis Khan.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of giving the Joes a run for the money in the buff, and it sort of reminded me a little bit of Austin Powers, the fruit basket scene where he's sort of got out of bed in the nude, and sort of various things are sort of being passed in front of the screen just to block out the viewer seeing a full frontal shot. But yeah, it's handled well, and in a variety of different ways, with shadow and things blocking out the coverage and so on.
There is this had me slightly thinking back to the Jim Lee X-Men run in 1991, not Uncanny X-Men, adjectiveless X-Men. I think there's a scene around issue 6 where Psylocke is taking a shower, and maybe it is Uncanny, and there's very, very narrow, conveniently sort of wisping around steam so that you don't see her fully naked. And this also sort of had me thinking of the phenomenon in the last 5 or 10 years where Nightwing in DC Comics, right? Dick Grayson, artists will sometimes on their own, or because the writer sort of gives them the opportunity, will show off his butt.
Right.
Sort of in costume, because he's a circus performer, he's an acrobat, but also all these superhero costumes are tight, and then sometimes maybe he's like taking a shower or at the beach or something, and it's a little more on the nose.
So I had a good suggestion on Facebook from Yorktown Joe, who said we've got a new colloquial equivalent for the cat is out of the bag. A secret is revealed. We should now say the Genghis is out of the tank.
The con is out of the tube.
Exactly.
I also liked going back to this idea that each of the Joes takes a swing at Genghis Khan. I like that he is superior to them, and he fends them off. And there's bravado. Jinx says there are more of us where he came from, right? And Helix, who I guess is sort of the most hot-headed, or maybe Dawn because she's the youngest, right? But Helix says, "Oh yeah, you can take your honorable and shove it, right?" Brap. But she gets headbutted, and maybe it's just a bloody nose, or maybe her nose is broken. But sometimes the Joes seem invincible because they, take down, 50, 100 issues ago, it's really difficult for them to take down a blue ninja. And then 10 or 20 issues later, it's hard. And then 10 or 20 issues later, they say it's hard, but it doesn't look hard. And then, 5 issues ago, it happens pretty quickly. They just shoot them in the eyes. And here, this guy knocks them back, swats them back quickly and with, panache. I'm not looking for, Joes to get like shot or killed, but, I want them to be put through their paces, and I want them to struggle with adversity. And this bit where Scarlet sends 2 of them away, and then Dawn says, "No, you lead the 2, we'll stay, or I'll stay." Stakes. I'm always looking for stakes. Like, this Kama's not about to kill Scarlet or like have her captured and thrown in the Braveways scanner, but I'm a little worried that the team's getting split up here. And I'm a little worried when the extraction team meets the 3 Joes coming out of the sewer, Helix, Scarlet, Jinx, and Roadblock says, "Where's Sean and Dawn?" It's like, oh no. It's like, well, I mean, there's some version of next issue or the next issue or 300. I think someone's going to get strapped into the cloning machine or the Braveway scanner. I don't know if it's Dawn or Snake Eyes or Mindbender or Genghis Khan. I don't know if they're going to immediately get pulled out, or the thing will get shot, or it'll actually get turned on and, something will happen. Someone's memories will go to someone else, someone will get cloned. But, Hama is specifically separating the team.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're kind of left at the end of the issue with a separated team. Sean and Dawn are on their own, back with the rest of the Cobras, and away from the rest of the Joes, and talking to our speculation on what might happen in this arc, and also Dr. Mindbender's plot to clone Snake Eyes. Yeah, we're left in a situation now where that seems like a very real possibility, that we've got Sean and Dawn in the room with the Cobras and the machinery to do any number of things in terms of transferring their memories and into any number of different places.
Yeah.
You also sort of talked about the sort of stakes, and it's sort of we've had these characters, Dawn, Helix, Jinx, Sean, established as phenomenal fighters and somewhat undefeatable, and particularly Dawn and Sean. We've had the instances of them ploughing through the train in, I think it's 291, and being released the Sean in a couple of issues earlier. So it's almost sort of super powered in terms of their abilities. So somewhat humbling for them to be defeated so easily by Khan, and he throws quite a lot of shade there on Sean, which maybe some of the Fake Eyes haters might appreciate, where he says, not a warrior born, but at best a skilled pretender.
That line is one of those truncations in writing that I think goes too far, but I'm actually okay with. This sort of shorthand where the resurrected Genghis Khan has been alive for like 1 minute, and he has exchanged 1 blow with this man in black, and he knows that this guy is some kind of pretender. Like you can imagine in a in a kung fu movie, in a boxing movie, like the character, the character who's a tactical genius, the villain you love to hate. You can imagine them trading a few blows and sort of at the end of a fight scene, at the end of a match, about saying like, "You are not who you say you are. You are just a pretender." Like, little boy, go back to your master. And so, like, I don't really think that Genghis Khan would know this quickly, that Sean sort of isn't the real Snake Eyes. But I'm okay with it because, to some extent, a lot of comics, is a shorthand, and we only have 20 pages. And also, Mindbender seems to have imprinted a lot of things onto the protoplasm matrix, or whatever the term is. So sure, why not all of Cobra's intel on all the Joes, happening off panel.
And while we're talking about Khan still, we got to talk about some G.I. Joe fashion, and specifically the Emperor's new clothes.
Armani, Prada, Versace too. Joe's changed their outfits from black to blue. Duke and Hawk, look but don't gawk. Changing their kit, whoa, is that legit? Swapping camo jackets, headgear and boots. It's now neon colours and funky spacesuits. Sci-fi stalker and even Roadblock. While Bill, Flint and Mutt gave me a shock. So go take a walk if clothes aren't your passion. Cause it's comic book talk and lovely G.I. Joe fashion.
So typically for an Emperor's new clothes, he is in the buff initially, but then he dons some Alley Viper trousers, as we would say over here in the UK. It looks like a Viper's vest, but it's red as opposed to the black that most of the Vipers are wearing in this issue. So a Viper's red vest, which is at least a canonical with some later versions of the toy. And Dr. Mindbender's cloak. It's a bit of a jarring look in terms of that colour combination, but functional. And also sort of topped off points with a Night Creeper curved sword and an Alley Viper shield. What do you think, Tim?
And I missed this the first time, but besides using Mindbender's cape as sort of a towel around his waist, there is a panel where a Viper puts it on him like a cape. I think the color scheme is terrible, which is why I think it's so funny.
Yeah.
Like I think Serpentor wearing the sort of the weird wispy cape with the two strands that come down in the front, and no shirt and the orange pants in issue 49. I've always disliked that. I think it looks terrible, but it's sort of softened because the color isn't saturated, because it's like old comic printing on newsprint, and Rod Wigham's artwork is, crisp. And in my mind, I'm sort of just pretending that he's wearing the proper costume from the action figure in all of 49 and 50. But so as I think an inadvertent callback to that, I'm okay with this. And considering how carefully Mindbender planned this, I feel like the clothing, that it's piecemeal, and then also that the colors are terrible, is a funny comment on how this is going sideways quickly, right? And Laura whispers to Mindbender, already having second thoughts. Let loose upon the world with an army, he could be disastrous. I had thought I had programmed enough safeguards into him to keep him under control, but is that really possible? A lot happens in this issue, and I feel like it sort of makes up for those two issues where your main comment and my sort of secondary comment was like one issue's worth of stuff happened in 2 issues. And also this issue's good, sort of, I'm using this term in a specific way, closure, or maybe the word is follow through on the last issue, where we have this flashback to Genghis Khan in his original era, and it's unusual and pretty long considering the rest of the issue. But maybe without that, this issue, what's the big deal with this guy? He's a big deal because I guess Mindbender is sort of telling us that he is. But some track was laid.
We've seen that he was a big deal with our own eyes, and also we saw his death as well. So when he's talking at the end about his threat of a suicide bombing, and saying, "I was dead for 800 years before I was revived. Do you think I'm afraid to return to the good sleep? Well," that's maybe not just some idle threat that, he was dead. He was shown as a ghosty as well. And so maybe the idea of no longer being alive is not as scary a thing to him as it might be for someone else.
I don't know how I feel about his final bit of dialogue there. This page feels different for Hama and a cliffhanger. I think part of what I'm reacting to is the final page. The actual, I like the drawings. The layouts are a little less exciting than I'd prefer. There's sort of no backgrounds, but the cross-cutting makes sense. We see her, we see him, we see him, we see them. But this final page, I want to believe Hama that Genghis Khan is willing to kill himself to take down these two adversaries. But at the same time, he's been alive again for like 7 minutes. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that I think I'm calling his bluff. And, I think Hama gets to this page and maybe has an idea what the first page of the next issue is, or maybe not. And also, if Andrew Lee Griffith is drawing this issue while the next issue is being drawn, or there's some overlap, Hama's writing 2 issues much more closer together than normal, or maybe sort of overlapping.
Yeah, and the approach as well is that his plot, art, dialogue. So at the point that Hama would be doing the dialogue, he's already done the plots, and a good chunk of the art for the next issue has been done as well. So yeah, sequencing might be a little bit different to normal.
So and I'm looking at this final page and I'm thinking, whether or not this is a bluff, I feel like the next page skips ahead the first page of the next issue skips ahead 10 seconds. Sean and Dawn are up in the air, jumping and slashing, and the grenade has been hurled across the room, and sort of the fight has actually already begun. And I feel like we're going to very quickly move past this bit where the grenade's actually going to kill one of these 3 main characters, and this sacrifice is going to happen. It's similarly, this, I don't think this would happen, but it's is the first page of the next issue Sean or Dawn having just thrown a throwing star or a sword or a dagger, and Genghis Khan's, it's nicking his arm, and he's dropping the grenade. I think this standoff gets diffused and sort of unwritten immediately.
I think this is a plot contrivance that means that it's a way of slowing things down, stopping the conflict, such that Sean and Dawn stand down to enable then the next bit of the plot to happen. And I know that Larry says he doesn't write, plot, it's all character, but I think, the through line is that we need to get 1 or 2 of these characters into the brainwave scanner, and this is the way that's going to happen. What next? I had just an observation about Scarlett's dialogue to Dawn as the sort of team is separating. She says, "You and Sean are all that I have left of the Snake Eyes that I remember, so make sure to bail before it's too late," which I thought came across as a little bit cold. It's almost like saying, you have no value to me apart from reminders of the real Snake Eyes.
Oh, I thought of it more as maybe I was misreading it, but sort of the opposite. Whatever happens, you have to get out of here.
Yes, I think that is it, but it's just almost implying, it's not because you're my friends and I care deeply about you. It's because you remind me of Snake Eyes, and I want to have that living memory of Snake Eyes.
I mean, I'm also okay with that because, there's not a lot of time for a big speech here. So
you can only do so much.
Yeah, maybe she instead of saying the 2 things, you're great friends of mine on her own. She just says the 1.
My last note, as a general talking point, was just how cool is it to see alley vipers shields being used as shields? We're sort of seeing them used in sort of two slightly different ways. Firstly, as kind of a weapon by Khan in those fights against the ninjas, and then secondly when they're forming a phalanx and sort of using the shields to protect themselves from the hail of bullets from the Joes and sort of drive them back. Is not really seen the kind of the use of the alley viper in that way that maybe we envisioned them originally when we first had them as toys in our youth.
Yeah, because they're urban pacification, not hallway pacification. Or laboratory pacification. The thing that strikes me about this issue in terms of publishing, not story, is that it is a fill-in issue right before a double-sized anniversary issue. And I don't think we had that around 48, 49 before 50. We did have that before 100, right? Mark Bright is chugging along. And Herb Trimpe draws issue 99 so that Mark Bright can draw the double-sized 100. And I was thinking, oh, well, did this happen around 200? And no, there is a fill-in at 193, but Gallant draws 194 all the way through 200 and well past 200. So in sort of an old-fashioned comic book publishing way, I sort of expect this. It's not that like, oh, well, and then you had this added. I mean, the real reason is because IDW is, as our guest tells us, getting pressure to really wrap this up before the end of the year, to have issue 300 out, or it's creating the pressure itself. I don't know that Hasbro is saying that to IDW, but IDW's is saying like, we're definitely doing 300. And so we're going to hem our bets and have someone else draw 297. But in an old-fashioned sort of way, like when I was first reading comics, this happened a lot. You'd be reading Captain America or, X-Men, and a month or two before the double-sized anniversary issue, someone else would draw an issue. And so this rhymes a little bit with Trimpe doing 99 for Bright to do 100. I like. And as we said before, the two people drawing this issue are well acquainted with the series, so it's nice to have them back. That exchange between Diaz and Hama. So Diaz posts the pencils of his splash page, and Hama sort of slightly corrects his characterization of the sort of how to draw the scene. And Hama says, actually, I gave you the option of working from my allouds or flexing your creative muscles. I would never leave an artist to hang out to dry with a throwaway line like 3 more pages of fight. And Diaz says, don't take me wrong, Larry. I love to have the chance to do it. I had a very tight deadline to work on these pages, along with another 2 books I'm working on. So I wouldn't have been able to ask for a layout from you as I have asked before, which is much easier. But I thought if I could create it, I would think about shortcuts to hit the deadline. So I did the splash page. I wish more writers would have this confidence in the art team. Actually, sorry for the confusion. And Hama says, no offense taken. Just wanted to clarify so that other artists don't automatically assume that this is business as usual. I may not have had it totally clear that my, quote, layouts are the same as written explanations of choreography and are there only to indicate what the action has to be. Any reinterpretation that improves on the storytelling is always welcome. What you provided above is far better than anything I could have come up with. And Diaz says, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Larry. It means the world coming from you. That was posted on Diaz's Facebook page. He posted the plot for page 16 and his pencils for that splash page.
Cool.
I spy with my little eye.
So I spy Roblox kicking down a door again, in a very similar way to that he did last issue. So I can also at the same time say I spy a panel that looks very much like the Special Missions trade paperback.
I Spy. This is not an homage. This is not a swipe. This is completely inadvertent. It's just a little visual echo. Panel 1 of page 11, which is this slight up angle of Scarlet. So the camera's below Scarlet, but also she's leaning away from us, and she's leaning back against a squarish trapezoidal tech thing where the left side is a color and the side facing us is knocked out in black. This panel reminds me of the cover to issue 48, where Zartan is camera's a little bit low. Camera's at like diaphragm height, looking up slightly at him. He's leaning back a little bit while he's strangling Gung Ho. And there is a squarish trapezoidal thing, sort of a hallway door wall thing behind Zartan. And the left side is a color and the right side is black. So that is coincidental. But I looked at this panel and I thought, that reminds me of something.
That's what it was. Cool. This isn't my I Spy, but I'll shout out to Jay James on his tank, who says that Genghis Khan reminds me of Liver King on YouTube. And he seems to be this social media phenomenon of of this guy with a great big beard and a body made out of solid teak, let's say. So if you want to check that out in your own time, Liver King, search if you dare.
Error detected. Error detected. No prize incoming.
Error detected. Anything, Tim?
No.
So I spotted this one somewhat by accident. I was looking back to last issue, and this is really in the detail of errors detected here. In that lovely panel in the C-130 with all of that great perspective of the vehicles and the Joe sitting down, we have the vehicles in the C-130. They're the same ones that we saw going into the C-130 last issue.
Are they in a different order?
They're in the same order, so very good.
Okay.
The difference is that the vamp at the front...
it's a Vamp 2, not a Vamp 1.
Yeah, on the last issue it had a gun on the back of the vehicle, and this time it has got a missile rack. So I think we can no prize this one. So they went on to the C-130 in a hurry, and the configuration of the vamp still had the gun turret as it drove up, but they knew they wanted some heavy artillery to support them, and on the flight they switched out the gun.
And we'll no prize this back when the next issue comes out.
and then they changed their mind.
Right.
Yeah, let's look out for it next issue. Let's see what it is.
I'm gonna go a step further. When the cargo bay doors closed, not only did they take the guns off and put the missiles on, they said, we've got 3.5 hours. Let's paint this Vamp 1 to look like a Vamp 2, since now it's a Vamp 2 with the missiles. So by the end of the flight, they're going to say, you know what? I think we need guns, not missiles. So they're going to put the guns back on and then paint it back. So I do think in the next issue, it'll be wet paint.
Which is also the name of a new Joe. Wet paint. Excellent.
Yeah, he's a trainer, he's a G.I. Joe trainer. He does paintball back at headquarters. Anyway, James Kavanaugh, because invent something for wet paint and cosplay as him.
I didn't actually have a hammer time this time.
I have one. This isn't like jargon, but 2 panels after that Scarlet panel I just talked about on page 11, Scarlet says, we need to find an exfil route that doesn't involve getting past the advancing Cobras. And Jinx points and says, there's some sort of sump cover on the floor by the DNA tubes. See, all the liquid that spilled out is draining. There's an eddy in the puddle. And that is a very Larry Hama thing to, I don't mean write, I mean to figure out. That is clever, right? Because it's not just like, oh, there's a manhole covering, or oh, there's a sewer or a basement or a sub basement, right? That either sort of like, this is sort of a joke, but this is true. Like writing is a lot of sitting at your desk and just staring off. And you're just thinking about the thing you've already written, or you're sort of playing out scenarios or moving sort of mental chess pieces around. And some of it is like reading the paragraph you just wrote and reacting to it, going in and changing a sentence. But, like you say to a writer, it's like, well, write faster, write more, write better. It's like, no, sometimes this can't be rushed. And sometimes it looks like you're not getting your money's worth because the writer is just sitting there staring off. But then you maybe come up with something like, well, there's all this green liquid in the tube. And there are only sort of 4 ways that Joes are going to get out of this room. Out the front door, out the side door, through the ceiling, the roof, right? The air conditioning ducts, or down. It's like, oh, okay, well, basement, sub-basement. Like, oh, well, the liquid, the green liquid. And then Hama gets very specific. All that liquid that's spilled out is draining. There's an eddy in the puddle, right? That's smart.
Yeah, good. Very specific language as well. There's sump cover and eddy in the puddle.
I have 2 sump pumps.
Okay.
One is under my store in the basement, and one is in the basement of my home. And each has a cover, right? Because a sump pump is just like a cylindrical hole in your basement. And if your basement floods, or if it rains like crazy and the groundwater comes up, it sort of goes there because that's the lowest point in your basement, slightly under your basement. And then you have a pump in it, which like connects to a pipe, which like shoots the water up and out to the side of your home or apartment building, or like out onto the sidewalk, right? And so
I remember now, you wrote a book about it, Sump Pumps and Me. This Sort of Thing Is My Bag, Baby, by Tim Finn.
People don't remember this. There was actually a 7-part article series on my blog at the beginning of arealamericanbook.com, all about Sump Pumps and Me. So anyway, I like this little, I'm gonna call it not a Hamaism, but in terms of, this thing I say, it's like you would not see this line of dialogue in X-Men comics.
Cool. I would have preferred Dawn to have, instead of noticing the sump cover, I would have preferred her to have remembered that there was a door that she came through in the first place, which was led to the kitchen. Okay. Let's move on, Mark. Don't let it go. Let it go.
I think in the same way that there are Joes overhauling a vehicle inside a cargo plane, I think there's a whole team of Cobras that like walled off that doorway just as the fight started. So you actually can't get back into the kitchen.
Yeah. Okay. So I had a couple of colloquialisms from Larry. The Macedonian phalanx, which was an infantry formation developed by Philip II and used by his son Alexander the Great. That's Philip of Macedonia, hence Macedonian phalanx. And it was used by them as a technique which helped them conquer the Achaemenid Empire and defeat armies of other kingdoms. So, strangely enough, both Philip and Alexander in the past have been linked to Serpentor, and this is a technique of theirs rather than Genghis Khan. The other thing that caught my eye was this bit of dialogue. In the drainage system, Jinx says, "I'm going to so need a shower after this." And Helix says, "I'm going to need immersion in an autoclave." Again, very specific technical thing here. Autoclaves provide a physical method for disinfection and sterilization. They work with a combination of steam, pressure, and time, operating at high temperature and pressure to kill microorganisms and spores. Now you know.
And knowing is half the battle, you little twerp.
Going back to the Macedonian phalanx, Hama is setting up a joke where Gung Ho says, "Alley Vipers coming at us like a macaronian phalange," and phalange these are bones in the fingers, but a phalange is also a phalanx.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a half joke, right? It's I forget what the word is. It's one of those words. I think it's one of those words that ends with the letters O-N-Y-M, not synonym, not antonym, but it's a word that sounds like another word. You're getting a word mixed up for another word.
But also kind of means the same thing as well at the same time.
Gung-ho, thank you. Gung-ho is getting this only half wrong because it's not macaroni. Although, for all I know, I'm not Googling this the right way, and there is some like Macaronian civilization or like piece of armor that actually makes this more accurate, or some other joke, and I'm just thinking that he's making a food reference. But...
Macaroni baloney. Thanks, Roadblock.
Quote of the week, 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 quote of the week.
So much to choose from this issue. And of the ones that we've not mentioned so far, what I've gone for is the exchange between Laura and Cobra Commander, where she's on like a headset to Cobra Commander. It's all fine, Cobra Commander. Genghis Khan has the situation under control. Ooh! Cobra Commander just completely out of the loop, and the first stuff he hears of this whole thing is just over the radio.
I was going to pick that one too.
We didn't talk yet about Cobra
actually,
Commander.
I'll pick Nor Duke's one panel appearance in the issue. This issue's got everything. I'll pick a different favorite line. Roadblock says, "Good afternoon, Cobra Commander."
What are Joes doing strolling through my casino?
Yeah, a great bit of comedy, that page.
This is where, again, I sort of go back and forth. Like, well, Cobra Commander is an international terrorist, and he has murdered people, and he has started, if not wars, then battles. And I don't think he's going to pull out a pistol and shoot these Joes, because they have weapons too. Although there's a different version of this where he does that and they don't fire back because he's actually standing in front of bystanders, right? And he's sort of trying to go legit here. So as I read this, I thought, is this too funny? Is this too diffused? Is he not, evil enough? The joke is that the Joes need to get out. Like, not the joke. The logic of this is that, it's like, no, these three Joes need to successfully cross the casino and go outside. And they do.
Well, Cobra Commander is still schmoozing inside. This time he's not. He's not. I mean, he's not bigging up the dip.
Like,
it's the complimentary floor show.
Like some like every other Star Wars show and movie, some rebellion people disguise themselves and infiltrate some Empire or First Order base or ship. And it's like the version where like Luke and Leia and Han are like walking out. They like wave to Darth Vader, like, "Good afternoon, Darth Vader." And Darth Vader like doesn't immediately draw his lightsaber and, go after them. So, this is Hama's take on Cobra Commander, who is mean and evil and terrible, but not always. Sometimes he's, defanged or distracted.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Should we give this a score? Yo-Joage time?
7.
Yeah, I think I'll go 7.5. Really enjoyed it. Just a lot of fun. As I say, bonkers.
Lots of good storytelling from Andrew Lee Griffith, juggling a lot of characters and weapons and costumes, and in one or two panels, vehicles. A welcome guest appearance from Netho Diaz. I like his 2 pages after his splash page. I don't love them, but I like them. And since I knew going in with the plot, he just make up the fight, just have them fight. Oh, something I didn't mention. Someone uses a Frag Viper's grenade. And as a kid, I thought grenades were cool as a kid in sort of, army military gear. And I was always a little disappointed. I liked it that Joes and Cobras had grenades sculpted onto their, torsos. And when the Frag Viper came out, I think by the Frag Viper is 89. I think by then I'd already bought a disarmed grenade at our army surplus store.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, that was really cool. And also it made it to a Halloween costume. And, my brother and I, he had one too. We didn't do anything with it. I didn't run around the neighborhood or scare people with it. It was just a cool thing to have in my sort of like junk box. But when the Frag Viper was released, not only is there a tube that seems to, in the story, in the fantasy, like vacuum suck a grenade, a live grenade, from his backpack reservoir of grenades into his crazy throwing claw, right? And in that backpack are there little bits of grenades sculpted sort of within the space of the backpack, but he has 3 individual grenades sculpted that stick onto the top or bottom of his backpack that you can then put into his crazy claw, and you can actually kind of hurl or fake hurl. And they're not really scaled for G.I. Joe hands. They're a little too big, but close enough. They're 115% larger than scale life size. So here, like, I don't see Hama all that often being this specific about someone's costume, sort of what it does. It's like, no, well, like a Frag Viper could pick up like a regular Viper's machine gun if they needed to, or like a Joe drops their gun and picks up someone else's gun, and it's like, what's this specific kind of machine gun? And here, Genghis Khan is pulling those 2 grenades off those 2 prongs off of the Frag Viper's actual sort of toy accurate backpack. And then you have this joke where, anyway, 7.
Cool. Excellent. So I'll just say that last episode we introduced the new quiz, Serpent Or, and we're running a little bit long today, so let's put that one to another show. It will return. So next time on Talking Joe, we will be covering the latest issue of A Real American Hero as it comes out. So the next one will be ARAH 298. So 298 is currently due for 21st of September. So a little under a month. Yeah, sort of as we're seeing, like almost a 3-weekly schedule at the moment. So look forward to that. And as always, you can find us in between doing other things like talking about the Devil's Due era. Tim, where can people find you?
Video essays at our YouTube page, Atomic Abe Productions. My comic book store in Somerville, Massachusetts is Hub Comics. And on the internet, I am at arealamericanbook.com.
Very good. You can find more about the show at the usual places. talkingjoe.co.uk is the website that links to all of those places, like Facebook, where lots of people have been joining this last week. So welcome to all of the new members there. Some good discussions on Twitter, on Instagram, and all of that good stuff, including Patreon. So big thanks to our backers, Sam, Jay, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, and our latest Patreon subscriber, a Real American Brian. He's stolen your name, Tim. They are getting early access to episodes as well as some exclusive content. So that is us done. But remember that
nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.